Serena, how are you doing?
I am so good. How are you?
I am wonderful. I'm super excited to chat with you. I know that we have a lot to talk about with your drama school audition journey, but I also want to give you credit because you just came off of producing your first one-woman show. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay,
Just
give us, yes, I want to hear the 60-second version of this before we get into our drama school. How did you decide to actually produce this? Where did you produce it? How did it go?
okay. So it was really a time constraint situation because I just got accepted to Pace and I was thrilled about it. And this was in January. And in between, finishing with Berkeley, because I, was still doing my undergrad in between drama school auditions, and I knew I would finish Berkeley in May. So I wanted to do something in between that and when I leave in August. And, the theatre industry in South Africa took a really big knock from COVID. So there wasn't much. And the only things that were available were 1 year or 3 year contracts. And I was dying to get on stage. So I scrambled around and asked a lot of my mentors, what should I do? And they just said, write a play. And then I thought to myself, about what? I'm 22. There's not much life that has happened, you know? And I looked at the last place that I really put my life, into, and that was the MFA drama school audition process. And the admissions essay that I sent was the inspiration for the entire show.
Oh my gosh.
So they literally were hand in hand. I looked at my essay and I went, there's a story here. Let me take it off the page, make it into a real life script with a real life story. Let me write it and let me put it on. So in between writing my final bits of Berkeley, I was writing a 30-page script. I managed to secure a theatre in the heart of Johannesburg called Theatre on the Square. I had to write the script in 2 weeks. I got my team together, my director and my musical director. And in about 2.5 months, we put the show on its feet.
Oh
And
my
we just
gosh.
came off the run.
Yeah, like 4 or 5 days ago, you had closing night, right?
Yeah,
Oh my
literally.
gosh, you're on fire. You're surely like you're buzzing.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
that is so great. And so now you've got a little bit of a break until you go to Pace.
Absolutely.
So well deserved. And let's backtrack to talk about that.
Okay.
Um, so so much in there, by the way. By the way, congratulations. And for all those listening, like definitely produce your own work. I produced my own work the summer before I went to drama school. It's so invigorating, and there's nothing like just having everything just on your shoulders and just putting your artistry forward, you
Yeah.
know. So that's really cool. Kudos to you. And so you there were so many great things in that share. So like first of all, let's introduce yourself. Your
Okay.
name, how old you are, where you're going to school, and what degree you're getting.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. My name is Serena Steinhauer. I'm 22 years old and I'm from Johannesburg, South Africa. And I'm about to start my MFA in acting from Pace University's Actors Studio Drama School.
Amazing, amazing. And you have talked about your experience. What did you do before this that kind of led you to want to audition for MFA programs?
Absolutely. So I have always come from a musical theatre background. So from a very young age, I did rigorous training in everything, in singing, in dancing, in classical piano, and in acting. And throughout my time in high school, I I participated in everything under the sun. I did one act plays, I wrote plays, I was in the major musicals at school. Art was my life for my whole life. Um, and because I had so many disciplines that I had been trained in, I knew I wanted to focus on one at a time when it came to studying. So I got into Berklee College of Music for my undergrad. I did it through Berklee Online because of COVID and just financial reasons and all of that. So I spent 3 years doing an undergraduate in one of my, mediums of craft, which is music and voice and
It's an
piano.
amazing program, by the way.
It was
Berkeley is an
love,
outstanding program for music.
absolutely. And you know what? It wasn't just focusing on the instrument. They really put an emphasis on how can you be a working musician. They want you to be business savvy. They want you to be independent as an artist and know your rights as an artist. Be skilled, but be practical, which is what I loved. Um,
Well, we'll get to Pace, but clearly that's a fit for Pace as well. Yeah.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
continue.
Yeah, so I just graduated in May, summa cum laude, which was life changing. But in the last year of my Berkeley degree, I thought to myself, I'm really enjoying studying and really honing my craft. I've done music. Now I want to focus on my other love, which is straight acting. Because that for me was the most pivotal medium when I was in high school and when I was studying drama. I always loved straight drama. So I thought to myself, I want to go straight from my undergrad into my master's in acting. So I would come out with 3 years each of both, mediums of study. So I would become sort of a very well-rounded, equipped performer in both spheres.
That's great.
Yeah, so I started doing my research about, what programs were out there. I loved the American way of teaching. I've always had an American dream. So it was a no-brainer that I was coming to the States.
Yeah. Did you only apply to schools in the States?
Yes, only applied to schools in the States. I'm an American girl by heart with
Well,
like the thickest South African accent, but that'll go away. Um, so I did my research and, I found the general track, the Yale, the Brown, the Columbia, the Pace, what else like there's, all of the usual ones that people apply to. And I said to myself, I'm going to apply to all of them and I'm going to engross myself in the MFA acting audition process. And I knew it would be difficult, but I was so determined after coming from Berkeley. I just wanted to be there and I wanted to be in America and study my other love.
Well, your passion is clear, and you have to have that level of desire when you're working on something like drama school auditions, right? Because naturally, there's going to be some ups and downs.
Absolutely.
And you probably can speak to some of those as we get into this. So let's go back to the moment when you kind of were still looking for pieces. Right? Did you already have your pieces chosen like, a year in advance, or did you find any new pieces within that preparation time?
So it was a little bit of a hybrid of both of those, because I had pieces in the file, in stock from when I was a drama student at school. And, I felt comfortable with the pieces, but I was still the high school student doing them. I was still stuck in that. But what I thought is I wanted to take what I know and what I love and take it to the next level for these auditions. So there was still room to grow with the pieces. So the first two pieces that I chose were ones that I did in high school. And the first piece was Hester's monologue from Athol Fugard's Hello and Goodbye, which for me was the pivotal one because this is a South African playwright. It's in my accent. It showcases me. And the other one was William Congreve's The Way of the World, Millimant's monologue. And then the next part was finding the two other ones. I knew I had to find a Shakespeare. We have to have a Shakespeare. And even though Viola is very much done, Twelfth Night, I said, I love it. I resonate with the piece. I'm going to do it. And then I found Carol Churchill's Cloud Nine and Betty's monologue in that. And the common theme that ran throughout the pieces they were critical pieces. They had a social consciousness to them. They had a feminist undertone to them. And that for me plays, hand in hand with my value system. So I knew with each one of those pieces I could bring an authentic viewpoint, and that's where I found the strength in the pieces.
That is so critical to re-emphasize, is like, we always talk about, how do I find pieces, which pieces are right for me? And even though it's cliche, it's true, and you're saying it, which is like, you've got to connect with the material.
Yeah,
Keep
absolutely.
reading until you find authors and plays that you feel have shared values for you, or even just characters and moments, because really the monologues are just a moment in the play. So even if the play overall isn't necessarily that moment, can be just something you totally get,
Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
and so kudos to you for having that, when you're looking, having that lens of like, I'm looking for something that I personally connect with, and having also a good self-awareness. Sometimes we're consciously aware of what we value, sometimes we're not really consciously aware of it, we just are. But the more you read, the more you'll have a chance to connect with good material. So you had two pieces from high school, and then you kind of discovered two pieces. How did you find the two others, the Shakespeare and the Carol Churchill?
I I did my research through YouTube, and I know that's maybe like an unconventional way of doing it, but when you see a piece brought to life, you can sort of gauge it a little bit better than just reading the script sometimes. Because if you find a piece online and you see an actor perform it, you can get an understanding of the text, and then when you read it yourself, you sort of have a point of reference. So I did a lot of my research online and just reading plays, going I think the one place I did really find a little treasure trove was I think the National Theatre there in London.
Yeah.
Their YouTube channel, they have little excerpts of the Shakespeare that they put on, and that was like a little gold mine for finding a great Shakespeare, and see how people have reinvented them and sort of given a fresh breath of air into them.
Mm-hmm.
um, and then Carol Churchill's Cloud Nine, I did a piece with my best friend in high school, another Carol Churchill work, Top Girls, and we did it for our final drama practical ever. So I went into Carol Churchill's work because I love her style of writing, and I love her themes, and I think she's bonkers, but she's
She's,
brilliant.
yeah, exactly. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and I found Cloud Nine, and I read the synopsis and I read the themes that run through, and I saw again a commonality with the other pieces, and I thought that's where I need to look, because I felt I needed to create a package in a way. You know, there's there's a sort of consistency amongst the pieces. They're not all they were all thought out, and you know they were there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to ask you about. Like, you talk about the packaging of the pieces. Um, Obviously, the schools require like a contrasting,
Yes.
right? And so, how do you feel as if, let's talk about Pace's audition, the first two pieces that you shared with Pace. How do you feel? Which pieces were those? And how do you feel they contrasted?
Yeah. So it was interesting. Pace wanted two contemporary. They actually didn't want to see a classical. So I was a little bit worried because my contemporaries were quite similar in a way, just with energy, not in the text or not in the accentry. Not that there was accentry, but there was just a little bit of an effect to Betty from Cloud Nine. But I said, okay, well, I have to give them Hester and Betty. Um, so that's what I did. And even though they were too contemporary and they had very similar themes, I think because I dropped into them and looked at them as an isolated monologue, not with the commonality, that showed, that
Yeah.
translated into the different energy.
Well, I see what you're
And
saying, because like, if you just bring truth to the imaginary circumstances of that piece,
yeah,
naturally it's going to be a different moment
yeah,
than whatever other piece you have. And so you're talking about going deep with your work. right?
Yes.
Because some people talk about the enemy of good art is generality. And
Mm,
so, right, if you're getting specific with the choices about that character, the choices about that specific moment, the choices about that energy, the choices about the relationship to the other character, the more specific you get, the deeper you go, it becomes more unique.
absolutely.
And it
Absolutely.
sounds like you were finding layers and, complexities that even though the pieces on the page may have felt sort of similar,
Yeah.
your quality of work was high enough that they stood out as separate. I don't know. Am I interpreting that right?
100% right. You're explaining it better than I am, even.
You're not the only person we've coached. Uh,
I will say this, the coaching was crucial to me being able to do that. So even though I was, I'd learned the work, I had gone through the nuts and bolts of it, it was the coaching that allowed me to layer it. I couldn't,
okay.
couldn't do it alone.
I know
Um,
you've gushed. So tell us more specifically, obviously, for people who have not experienced our coaching, why? What was going on in the coaching session? What light bulbs were going off? What questions were being asked that were really helpful?
I think I must mention that, taking the Athel Fugard um, to the next level was difficult because I had already set it in place and had it set for 5 years. So Stacy actually did something very interesting. She stripped it down. She said, take it apart. We are going to re-put it together. And doing that was one of the hardest things I had to do. Because when something is so ingrained in your bones, you become so vulnerable, and Stacey, she asked me so many questions before we even started the work, which I think was the moment that I began to understand it more as well. But you know Athel Fugard, a lot of it is set in South Africa, so I had to explain it from a South African perspective. And she said to me, even though I can't visualize it, I can't see what you're seeing because I haven't been there, I don't really understand it that intimately. I'm going to give you prompts and see how you visualize, you know, the circumstances, and then take it from a completely dramatic point of view. And she asked me such basic questions like, who are you talking to? Why are you talking to them? What are you feeling? What do you want out of this situation? And I had never thought about those things before. And even though I know, by stripping it down to its bare minimum, allowed us to grow it into this whole new tree, which was
It's
fascinating.
it is
Yeah.
fascinating and it is really beautiful. And it's often how the more compelling work comes
Mm.
because we all are storytellers. We all have instincts about material when we read it. Oh, this is what it should look like. This is what it should feel like. This is how I should say it. That's totally natural. No one would ever blame us for having those instincts, right?
Yeah.
But what sometimes we neglect to recognize is that developing art is not just based on instincts. Developing really interesting art is a process. And sometimes when we're younger and we're still developing as artists, we skip steps, and it's so funny to us when like someone, is just asking us like these basic questions. These are smart actor questions, right? Whereas when we're just kind of putting ourselves out there, which is essential, you have to have the courage to put yourself out there, even if you don't have all the information. It sounds like you were willing to put yourself out there. And that allowed your coach to ask you the smart questions. And then you immediately were creating right from there.
Yeah. And it wasn't always easy doing that. You know, putting it at its base level was hard. There were some sessions that I just couldn't get it and I just couldn't connect with it. And the wheels fell off the bus.
Yeah. I call that the dark cloud. The dark cloud period of rehearsal. Yeah. But
It
yeah.
was. It felt like that. It felt like I'm never going to understand this. And And once I got into the room in the auditions, or even just filming it, in a self-tape way, very much that when I pressed play, all that grueling work, even the hard sessions, fed the performance.
Wow.
And that's where it came together. And yeah, the whole thing was just, the process was just so interesting because it felt so clinical, and like we were stitching each piece by piece by piece. And only at the end could I see the whole tapestry. And it
Mm.
was layered, and it was intense, but also organic.
Yeah, that's kind of the magic of art, is like you have to do the grueling work. You can't skip steps, right? You have to make specific choices, but then you have to let it go.
That's the thing.
You just got to give the gift, right?
Yeah.
It's just crazy, but it sounds like you did. And it's easier to do that when you can trust that you've gone through the process. If you're out there sharing your work and even in the recesses of your mind, you're thinking, I don't know if I really made all the, strong, I don't know if I really gave this process its due. Then you're going to kind of, not be able to fully share yourself. You're not going to be able to relax into that gift giving, and you'll have some fear, that might, shut you down a little bit, or that might not show you off. You shine,
Yeah.
So I want to hear about, well, God, there's so many things to talk about. So let's talk about international applications. Tell us, you only applied to US schools. What was the international application process like? Did you have anybody helping you? How did you handle that?
I think because I've applied to American universities before, I was very comfortable with the interface and how to apply. And you know what? All the universities make it so accessible. Even as an international student, I don't feel that I'm filling out a different application. I feel it's very, very user friendly, and you know, for them to deem you an international, it's just answering one question. It's simple as, they know they would have to give you an F1 student visa form, which is called an I-20, if you do get accepted. There's no prejudice, which is great. And you know a lot of there was a big decision of, do I choose auditioning online, or do I fly to the States to do these auditions? I think that is the major difference, is the distance, you know, for me to get there to show them the work. Because, doing it on a computer, it's great, but it can only facilitate so much. You want to be there, you want to be in the room and show them you in person.
And what's your philosophy about that? Did you do pre-screens, or were you just like committed to going in person? Like, what's your philosophy there? What did you think about that?
So I had to unfortunately choose pre-screens for some schools because I couldn't stay in the States for that long, just for financial reasons. It's very expensive. The South African rand is terrible. It is shocking. Terrible. So the us to the dollar, it's expensive. But I had to do half half. I applied to 9 schools. I could only do 4 in person in the States. So the other 5 I had to do online. And I would say my philosophy is, you have to go there. It makes the world of difference. Obviously, there is a financial aspect to it, but if you can, you should. That's not to say that you can't get accepted or get through the process online, because I feel like the online forums were great. They know how to set this up, that you feel that you are in an audition. You feel like it's just the flow, like we do in the sessions. You have to employ that still. You're just doing it in front of a screen, um and I will say this: going there helped, just with energy, with performance, and with giving it 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, like, it is pretty outstanding since COVID, when we were forced to all go online, like how rich, performances can be.
Yeah.
And you did all your coaching sessions online, right? So, I mean, you're really able to work with the people across the screen. You're really able to feel the work come
Mm.
through. But for some individuals, you know, it's just like, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't similar. I'm kind of a social person,
Yeah,
you know, so having the live energy of someone there does have an impact. And if you've already done all this great work and now you're in person, you're just even more excited to share as
exactly.
opposed to, you know, more nervous. So really cool. Thank you for sharing. Um, what would you say to someone who's just, obviously we're here recording this in the summer, but I don't know when people are watching it, but if someone's in the summer before their um, audition, what would you say to them as far as like how to start,
Mm.
when to start, what to focus on?
Yeah. I started pretty early with this process. I started in May of 2022, and I knew I would only be auditioning in January. I am very much a planner. I feel I find safety in having done weeks and months of planning and rehearsal, just so I could feel solid and have enough time. I know sometimes it's different. People like to do things closer to the time. For me, and the people like me, starting in advance is the best thing you can do. Even if it's just writing your essay early on. If you get those things out of the way, like the nuts and bolts of it and filling out the applications, because those take time too. If you do that early on, as you get closer to the auditions, you have time to work on your pieces. And those require the most time. And you need to become intimate with them and not worry about, oh gosh, I still have to write an admissions essay of 1,000 words. Because there's only so much capacity in the brain. I I think, having too many
We can
things.
get easily overwhelmed. It's true.
Exactly, exactly. So I started researching schools in May. I started looking at the applications in May because they were open at that time. Writing down what I need to do. I used to make little checklists. I started, finding material, looking at scripts, looking at videos, really starting the process. And by the time I got to, I would say, I did some in November, but really in January when I went to the States, I was so intimate with the work.
Hmm.
It was in me. I only started coaching in that November, so there was still a freshness to it. So do the research and then coach closer to the time. I think that was my recipe
That's
for
great.
success.
Yeah,
I
well,
think,
what I'm hearing more than anything is self-awareness.
yeah.
And then that is super key to a good artist. I remember my Juilliard teacher talking about the difference between Juilliard, between self-awareness and self-consciousness,
Wow.
and that one is destructive and one is constructive, right? Self-awareness is something that you want to continue to develop more of, and self-consciousness is something you want to continue to, let fall away. But self-awareness is what I'm hearing from you, like obviously, and you acknowledge some people are not like that.
Yeah.
Some people have different ways, but and you've probably heard it. If you're viewing this video, you've probably heard it across other videos. Maybe Serena, you saw other people's stories about things that they just needed to do for themselves to get to that point where they felt excited to share. But ultimately you knew yourself well enough and you honored what you needed in order to, like you said, feel that confidence and feel that, like, I'm prepared and I'm excited to share,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And so
Exactly.
whatever it is for people, like, yeah, that is super helpful advice. So thank you for sharing.
Sure.
Um, let's talk quickly about, your accent. We talked about how, you may not sound, you sound like you're from outside of America. And some people have like a thing about that. Oh, I'm gonna put on an American accent, or whatever it may be. What's your philosophy there? And when you were approaching the auditions, like, did you want to hide the way you spoke? Did you want to show the way you spoke? How did you choose material based on the way you spoke?
That is such an interesting question and Stacey and I spoke about it because for Hester, that was the one I was worried about. Because to stay true to her, I really have to talk like an Afrikaner. And this is how Hester talks. This is how Afrikaans people in South Africa talk. That's not my accent, as you can hear. But Hester, that is who Hester is. And to honor her and the truth of Fugard's writing, I had to put on that accent. And that was the only one that I really put on. And it's quite difficult for the American ear. And I remember asking Stacey, can you hear me? Can you understand what I'm saying? She goes, yes, you have to be bold. You have to take that risk. And you have to do it that way. For the other pieces, I spoke exactly like this, because I felt that you have to show them the neutral canvas. This is how I speak. This is where I'm from. Yes, I can mold into accents. I can put them on, but this is my natural voice. So I think I'm of two minds. I think if the character is very specific and the college allows you to put on an accent, because sometimes they don't, sometimes they say, please, no accents. If they allow you to, I think putting on an accent, authenticates the character. But at the same time, I don't think as a foreigner, you should go into America and try imitate them, because sometimes it comes across as mocking. And you do not want to do that by any means, So I think speaking in your natural voice for pieces that can be neutral is the best way to go.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a really great way to put it. And specifically with Shakespeare, right? Some of us, no matter if we're from outside of London or not, we think, oh man, it sounds much better when I put on an accent like I'm from that area. Like, honor your way of speaking.
Absolutely.
And I like how you said neutral canvas. That was really
Yeah.
nice. And like, this is who I am and this is where I'm from. But you had an exception to that rule when you were looking at a piece where, in order to really honor that character and honor that material, like, it wouldn't have made sense otherwise.
Exactly.
Right. And that's going to be a tough conversation, but you can, with your mentors, you can have that conversation and decide what choice am I going to make. And I think that with help, you did. All right, so let's talk about the acting. Let's go to the auditions, specifically Pace, right? They asked you to do 2 contemporary. You're used to maybe doing a classical and a contemporary. Now you're asked to do 2 contemporary. Okay. How did it feel when you walked in the room? How did your initial audition go?
So Pace's process is a little bit different. So you have to send in a pre-screen, which they will only, well, I'm just thinking now.
It's kind of like a first round. It's a
first round.
everybody, whether you're domestic or international, right? Everybody sends the pre-screen.
Absolutely.
And then you either get an invitation or not.
Exactly. It's the invitation, which is, I think, the different way of doing it. It's not really an in-person 1, 2, 3 round. It's a pre-screen invitation, and then you get the answer. So everyone, domestic or international, as you said, does the first round via pre-screen. And doing 2 contemporary on the pre-screen was great. It was fun. It was very much, I could do as many takes. I could, feel comfortable with what I sent them. So it was great. I sent it into the ether of the internet and hoped for the best.
Yep.
I put in all the pre-screens really early. Once again, because I'm a big planner and an A-type, as they opened, they were sent. First day, ding. Then I think it was in December, I got an email from Pace. It was my first answer, with anything. And a bead of sweat fell down my brow as I clicked on my email and I read, "Congratulations, you've been invited to audition."
And you're like, oh.
I was like, oh, this is exciting, but it's not over yet.
You're like, I'm moving forward.
It's one yes. Woo. It was a step in the right direction, and it was so exciting because just getting that little bit of acknowledgement, it made me feel, okay, I was doing something right. I was doing something they liked. I can't drop the ball yet because there's still another round, but this is a good sign. And what Pace wants you to do for your second round, which is technically the last round, um, they want you to do a dialogue. They want you to do a scene with a scene partner. So here was the catch. I had to find someone who was in the States to do a piece with me. We had no time to rehearse it in person for weeks. It had to be, okay, I'm there for the week. We need to put it on its feet and then go do it at Pace. There was a lot at stake.
Was this another person who was in the callback with you, or was this like a scene partner, random outside person?
So you could, I don't think you could find someone in the callback. You had to sort of source your own scene partner and bring them with you. I know.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that was also another level of stress because I'm thinking, how am I going to find someone to do it with me in the States, in a foreign country, as a foreigner?
And
Luckily,
I was gonna say, wait, before you share, they were just like, yeah, figure it out.
yeah, they were like, you do you, have fun, see you at the audition.
Great, great. All right. My resourcefulness is kicking in.
Um, and in the email, they said we want to see you through the scene. We want to see something that speaks to you and showcases who you are, because we can see that you can act. I think that's what the first round is. Do you have the technique? Do you have, let me say inverted commas, the talent to be able to come to the audition? So that wasn't, I think, what they were looking at. They were looking at you as an individual. And that's when I focused on choosing the right scene with the right partner. And just as I chose a South African piece, which I sent to them, I wanted to choose another South African piece because I had a South African friend in the States who is studying at AMDA. We both have the accent. We both studied the same work at school. What better? And is there anything more authentic than doing something like that?
Mhm.
I was bringing a piece of home and a piece of me the way over, and I felt like that would make them see who I am. So yeah.
That's genius. I agree. And I'm so happy you did. Like, even if you're not international, right? For any of our viewers who are watching this, like, I felt the same way,
Yeah.
even being an American. Like, it was my responsibility. It was my privilege to be able to find material that I felt was a part of home and share that with them. And so at every turn, you kind of have that lens of self-awareness, authenticity, sharing myself.
Yeah.
And I love that you're putting that out there. So even at this opportunity where you're like, I didn't even know this was going to happen, I got to find someone in the States, right? You're like, can I find someone that represents home? Can I find a scene that represents home? Can I share myself? So that's so awesome. Okay, so you're doing this now in person, the scene work with the friend. What's happening? Tell me about it.
Okay, so I've basically landed on American soil. I've got my first audition tomorrow, but I also need to rehearse the scene because I haven't done it yet with my friend. Shout out to Sean. Thank you for helping me get into Pace.
Way to go,
So,
Sean.
woo.
Trooper.
So basically, so I'm in the middle of doing the auditions for Brown and Yale and still rehearsing the scene. And that duality was very, very stressful because I was taking the 4 monologues that I had done and I was still going to all the other auditions while working on something with very short notice, which was, I think, the interesting part of it, because remember, I'm planner number 1. I need time and time and time. We had no time. I would come to his studio at AMDA after I had auditioned, and we would run the scene. We would work through character till 11 o'clock at night in New York. After a full day of auditions, it was grueling. And I think the key to it being successful was that adrenaline of, we don't have time to really sit in it and marinate. We have to put it on its feet. We have to be organic. This is a conversation between 2 people. Let's have a chat. Let's be
It's
real.
amazing.
Yeah,
And
it
so
was.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's happens, when sometimes you have a lot of time, sometimes you have no time, but you have to put something out there that, is your best. And so you're clearly game for it. And you go in, do you share your work with the faculty? Do they say, are you just by yourself? Are there other applicants watching? How does how does it feel in the room?
So it was very interesting because, we get to Pace, and there aren't a lot of people there because remember it's technically the final callback. So there were about, four couples in the waiting area. And the current students that were there said, you don't need to introduce your work. You just need to go in to one of the black boxes and perform your scene. And I performed a piece from Mike van Graan's Green Man Flashing, which is a post-apartheid piece. So Sean and I had a context, about what that feels like, because we're part of technically the born free generation, so the generation straight after apartheid. But once again, it was a very meaty concept and it was a very historical concept. And I was always thinking, gosh, I wish I could explain and give the faculty just all this like these
There's
reams of
context. Yeah.
history. Because we were citing things that only pertained to the new South Africa situation. So anyway, I thought, okay, well, we just have to be gung-ho and go in and perform it. And it was funny, you open the door and Susan Ford, well, she opens the door for you. She invites you in, and there's three people. There's Susan Aston, Susan Ford, and the dean of the department, Andreas. I forgot his surname. I'm so sorry, but they were all sitting there, and there was this vast white light and a huge spotlight on the floor. It was very dramatic, I will say that. And I couldn't really see much of the faculty. So it was very much you walk in, you take your places, you take a breath, and then you go. And that whole atmosphere, that very dramatic, literally a spotlight on you, I think helped us stay so in the moment. It was strange. It was a very good setup for that kind of situation and that kind of audition. I felt like I was on stage,
Mm-hmm.
which I think was a major plus of how they
Yeah,
set up.
yeah. Because sometimes in these auditions, you're right, you're just in a room with a light, like fluorescent lighting, like whatever. And so like, oh, there's them, here's us, we're all just lit the same. Whereas when you're actually in a theater and you're actually performing, the lights are on you and the audience is like totally dark.
Absolutely.
Typically that's a typical situation. And so that can kind of focus the actor on the scene and it can kind of release the awareness of the audience, right? Which enhances concentration and it enhances drama. And that's what you're talking about. And so I didn't know that they did that. I like that.
Yeah, I think yeah, that stage setting, we were really performing. And I could feel from the second we started, it was the best we had done it.
Yes.
Of course, I'm like shuddering with fear the whole time, but I'm masking it. I'm very much doing poker face. um, and Sean was great. He even had instincts. Like sometimes we would step out of the light because obviously we hadn't done it in the room, and he would shift over, which would push me back into the light. Everything just went well, and it just felt good.
That's so great. And I want to pause you there because like that feeling of feeling like that went well and that was just good. That is often part due to you. And this is my personal philosophy, just because I've, my experiences and helping others get into these great schools. It's also not in your control at all. There's like, I don't know, a cosmic little magic of some sort. And you might have heard it across our other videos too, where people just feel like that one school that they got into, or, it was just, there was a mixture of cosmic and also real thing. It was just kind of sparkling, right? Little magic pixie dust.
Literally, I can't agree more
You
because
can't explain all of it.
yeah, Pace was the last audition, and I had just been through the rejections of the other one. And I was, I was just depleted, because picking yourself up after being rejected is hard, and I had come all this way, and it was grueling. And then Pace came along, and from the second I walked in, chatting to the current students who are now some of my closest friends, and getting into the room and having just a good audition, the payoff was invaluable, really.
That's amazing. So cool. So cool. All right. So when did you get the notification? How did they contact you with the news? Tell us about that moment.
Oh gosh, just after the audition, I just have to mention that you still have to have the interview
Oh,
after
tell
that.
us about that. How did that
Yeah.
go? What questions did they ask? Yeah, how did you feel?
So that was another, that was technically, I think, the final round of the audition, because they tell you to leave the room, and if they don't want to see you for an interview,
You're
that's
not
the end
considered for
of
admission.
the.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was technically the final step.
Got it.
Yeah. So we're sent out of the room, and we're standing and waiting. And that 2.5.22 seconds was the longest wait of my life. And I remember looking at Sean with utter fear, just going, was it okay? Was it okay? I hope they call me back. I can't deal with another rejection. And I see Susan Ford's feet come close to the door, and the door slowly opens, and she says, come inside. And,
You're
you know,
like,
keeping it cool, but on the inside, I was, um,
as you should be.
yeah. But I think the answers to the questions were pivotal and very, very important. And the current students really prepared us for that. They said, please know which program and what the program you're going into is all about. That's all they said. And I knew, because in the final callback email, they said there will be an interview aspect. So the night before, I made a concerted effort to really do my research. And just as I learned my monologues, I memorized what the program was about, and I became intimate with the understanding the program itself. And I'm so pleased that I did that, because they really went, why here?
Mm.
Why? Tell us. We don't know why you want to come to Pace. There are a million other courses out here. And they were very course specific questions. And it's scary. It's scary speaking to the faculty and being close to the edge,
About their
and
own program.
about their own program. You don't want to get anything wrong. And the beautiful thing about Pace is that there is an integration of the directing, the playwriting, and the acting track. Not to say that, actors take directing courses or playwriting courses per se, but the cohort really is integrated into each other's experience, which is technically what theatre is. And Pace's method is very much rooted in Stanislavski, which is what I learned in high school. So I really had a passion for this, and spoke from the heart, and translated how their course is the right fit for me, because I wholeheartedly believed that. They just wanted to see your truth. No bells and whistles. Who are you? Really? And I think that's what all the courses look at. They only choose 16 people. They want to know who's coming. And all I did, and there's nothing to it, I just spoke from the heart. And
That's what
and
you have to do. It's kind of hard but simple. It's simple but not easy.
simple but not easy.
You do have to have a level of courage to share your honest truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but you can, if you've done that work, if you've really looked at that program and you understand what they offer, you're naturally going to respond to certain things in the training. Share that with them. Sounds like that's what you did. What else? Was there anything else that they asked you that, or that you mentioned that you felt was like, impactful?
Yeah, there was one question that was very interesting, and it was something that I had to think on my feet for. They said, "Where do you feel like where you are in your capability right now?" So again, in that moment, you sort of have to go introspective. And when you're feeling so vulnerable, it's daunting. You don't really feel in touch with yourself in those scary moments, especially in auditions. So I came from a place of, again, telling the truth. I said, I feel capable. I feel that, they wanted it on a scale of 10. And I said, I'm going to give them a humble 6, not 5, 6. you know, I I said, I feel like I can. I feel like I do have something inside me that these years of being an artist and loving it and doing the work are there. But I feel that there is so much left to do and so much room to grow. And that's why I'm here. I want to learn more. I want to be better. And I think that's a very important thing going into these auditions. You have to have a humility about your capability, because of course it is a program. You can be an award-winning performer, you can have done a million shows. Why do you want to learn more? Obviously you feel like there's a void. And it's funny because in my show, as much as it was a professional mounted show, during the rehearsal process, I still felt I can be better. I have room to, there's a void. I want to grow. And that's what I answered them with. I said, I don't feel ready. I think I'll feel ready after I've come to your program, which I've told you all about. you know?
Wow, very cool. And so how did they send you off?
They said, they just spoke to me a little bit. I mentioned Athol Fugard, and then Susan Astor said, "Oh, I've worked with his daughter," and we had a whole little chat. It was fantastic. And they said, "We'll be in touch in the next 2 weeks." And I thought, I've waited 4 months. What's another 2 weeks? And they sent me off, and I said goodbye to the new friends I made. And a day later, I was leaving back to Johannesburg. So I had a nice little day to myself in New York, and with my best friend, my mentor, Brian Schimmel, who came with me. And then I left and I arrived back in Johannesburg on the 25th. And the next day, on the 26th of January, I think my PACE audition was on the 21st of January. On the 26th, oh no, sorry. Yeah, PACE was on the 23rd, something like that. Yeah, my math isn't great.
Yeah,
Whatever.
yeah, yeah.
it was that,
Who
it was that,
cares?
who cares? It was that Saturday. I arrived back in Johannesburg on the Wednesday. On the Thursday, I got a very interesting email. It was 1 o'clock in the morning on January 26th in Johannesburg. I'm still on American time. I'm still jet lagged, so I'm awake. And I see, ding, there's an update to your portal. It's not 2 weeks. It's been 2 days.
There's
and I
something already there.
and I thought, it's not in the 2 week window. It's a rejection. They don't want me. I get it. I'm
I get it.
like what? Like what's new happened with the last bunch. And I rarely that 2 week thing ran in my head. I was sitting in bed. I open up my laptop in misery. I go to my portal. I see status update. I go, okay, let me just click on the update. Click on the update. And then I look. And then I just see congratulations.
Oh my gosh. And you wept.
I Anthony, I didn't do anything. I sat in bed. I closed the laptop. And all I said was, you did it. You actually did it. What you've always wanted in your head, your dream, is right in front of you now. And my soul left my body, and then I went downstairs and screamed to my parents. And it's 1 a.m, and they're like, tell us tomorrow. Tell us tomorrow.
Oh man, that is incredible. Wow. Yeah, it's a special moment. You'll never forget it.
Never, never. It was the best.
Wow. So, well, this has been a really great conversation, super fun, and I appreciate you sharing your journey. I
Oh,
mean, when you look back and you have, let's say people who are listening and watching right now are about to audition,
yeah.
what do you think is important as they embark upon their journey?
It's scary. It is, it takes everything out of you. Those rejections are hard. They are, and you have to just pick yourself up again. You question your capability. You question if you're on the right path. You question a lot of things, even down to questioning if these are the right pieces for you. Everything is in limbo. But if you just have this relentless determination about it, you bring the same work into the room as you did the day before, and you just say to yourself, I can. Actually, I can do it. Go in with that. Go in with focus. There will be one, even if it's just one school out of the 9 that say, we see you, we want you to be here. There's a place for you here. That moment makes up for every rejection, and that is the payoff. That is the just continuing to do what you love.
Mm-hmm.
The right place will see that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that art is not math, and there's no correct way to do acting. And if you are just able to, share yourself and you're able to prepare adequately and feel excited and just give the gift, then no matter what happens, it was a valuable experience and people got to see you,
Absolutely.
and you were able to experience that. I guess we're skirting around some of the tougher stuff. So I want to, before we end, I do want to get a little bit more deep into, how you handled the rejections throughout the time that you were here, because you said Pace was your last audition.
Yeah.
Right? You could have been broken. And you did say that you were depleted, and there was something there that's just like, F it. Let's just do this. And you had no time to prepare that like scene, and you were already kind of just like, but
Yeah.
I'm sure you went into the first audition with all sorts of feelings. You got, rejected. So how did you kind of go from, did you feel like you really did terrible work at any point? Do you feel like, I know you talked about being confused. Tell me about how you ran through those.
I think, I felt so prepared because of the coaching. I really did. And I don't feel that Stacey ever lied to me or said, Serena, just limit your expectations. We felt good. We felt confident. She goes, I'm proud of you. You've worked for this. You've worked hard. The level is there. You can do this. So I took what I learned in the coaching and applied it across the board. So taking the same monologues and the same standard across the board. So I don't feel that the work ever, faltered. Anywhere. I don't feel like I dropped the ball because the focus was so high and I cared about it so much. But, and especially for an international, having traveled 19 hours, getting rejected on a computer is far easier than getting rejected in your favorite place in the world, in the States, leaving that audition and seeing the Broadway marquees, and you're just going, oh, that will never be me now. I'll become an accountant.
That will never be me.
That was literally, I said,
I
oh
know.
my God. I'm like walking out of Brown and there's Six the Musical, and there's Chicago.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
It it hurt my soul. Anthony, I'll be very honest with you. It was hard. I cried. I cried and I doubted myself. But there was no time to stop because the next day was Yale and the next day was this and the next day was that. It was back to back auditions. And, I was so thankful that I had my mentor there that said, that was just one. Snap out of it. You have another chance tomorrow. And that's the sentiment. There's another chance the next day. And waking up in the morning and going to another audition after being rejected is hard for a woman or a man, or however you identify. Like putting on your clothes and putting on the makeup and doing the hair and getting the process of it all, and to be let down is hard. But those other auditions, something didn't feel right. There wasn't that magic, like you said, that was at Pace. In the others, I didn't feel as in control. I didn't feel I could be myself fully because there was something not gelling. And picking yourself up and being resilient and carrying on is what we all have to do in this business. So it's foreshadowing what you're going to have to do in the future. So even the rejections are crucial because you're learning how to keep doing what you're doing even if you're sore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very well said. Yes. And the rejection, doesn't stop. It only gets more complicated as you get into the industry, because sometimes you don't just get rejected from an audition. That's easy. Oh yeah, I didn't get a call back. No big deal. But sometimes in social settings, you get rejected. Sometimes in, networking events or, high profile things, you just get like totally embarrassed. That's also a type of rejection. You have to sort of learn how to continue to stay strong in who you are and what you represent and the work you do. So it is, you're right. It's crucial. And you responded the best you could. And obviously we're super excited for you to go to Pace.
Oh, thank you so much. I could not have done it without Stacey and without the How to Get Into Drama School community. It was the key, really, to getting into this, my dream school and making my dream come true. So thank you.
Yeah, you're coming. You're coming. And so obviously if you need anything, you have our support. We are cheering you on. And is there any final thoughts you'd like to share? This has been fantastic.
It's such fun. I'm just thinking if there's anything else. Oh, just be bold. I think that's what it is. It's sometimes you want to be small. Just like you say, let go. Just act. It's a human condition. You are a human being. Speak, feel, think, visualize. It's beautiful to be an actor. It really is. And it's hard, but when you get it right, you get it right.
Yeah, you really can feel it, and it's felt by everybody. So thank you for sharing your gift, and I can't wait for you to maybe come back on someday and talk about how your training is going and all the learnings that you're going through. So thank you for your time, Serena, and we'll talk soon.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It was so funny. I used to watch these videos and I thought to myself, gosh, I wonder if I would do it. I would be on the YouTube channel one day. Now we're here.
It's all good. It's all happening. You're
Yeah.
here. All right, very good. We'll talk soon, Serena.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.